Time to move on to our Hall of Fame inductions. Our first Hall of Famer tonight, which will be we had 10 go in, this will be the 11th Hall of Famer, is Mr. Dan Owen. Accepting the honor on behalf of Dan Owen is his son, Shannon Owen. A graduate of Burke-Burnett High School in 1950, Dan Owen was an outstanding multi-sport athlete. He attended Howard Payne University, playing basketball and running track. Dan's senior year in 1954, he led the conference in scoring, earning MVP honors while leading the Yellow Jackets to the Texas Conference Basketball Championship. That same year, he ran on school record-breaking distance relay teams and was the fastest runner in the conference in the 880-yard dash. Owen was also quite the ball player, ultimately turning down a professional baseball contract with the Boston Red Sox to remain at school and pursue a coaching career. He was a coach on the 1962 Jacksboro Tigers state champion football team that went undefeated, a perfect 15-0, and led the boys basketball team to state that same season. In 1971, he transitioned to administration at Holiday, starting as the elementary principal and climbing the ranks to superintendent before retiring in 1993. Dan also had an incredible streak of attending the UIL state basketball tournament every year. Starting in 1949, he went every year for the rest of his life, except one in 2002 when his wife was sick and they couldn't go. Dan Owen is already in the Howard Payne University Hall of Fame, and today he becomes a member of the Nexstar Sports Hall of Fame. Shannon, the podium is yours.
Hope I don't break that. I told Tobin up here they pretty well have already given my speech, but I also feel kind of like the lonesome man up here. On behalf of my sister Cindy and my brother Shane, we'd like to thank Nexstar and all the sponsors and the committee for this Hall of Fame induction. I know some of this was covered. I may have to repeat it or I'll sound like an idiot up here, but by going off my script. But this is actually my dad's third Hall of Fame induction. It talked about the one at Howard Payne. He's also in the Sports Hall of Fame for Burke-Burnett High School, and now this one, and we really appreciate the honor. There's a quote from a former coach at Burke-Burnett. He said, Dan Owen was one of the best all-around athletes to come out of this area. And interesting enough, the coach that made that quote is Joe Bob Tyler, who coached at Burke-Burnett back during that time. After he left Burke-Burnett, he went to Howard Payne College in Brownwood. Just like the video said, he was a 4-year letterman on the basketball team, the Texas Conference Most Valuable Player. He was the leading scorer and leading rebounder when he won the MVP. He was also a phenomenal track athlete. Two-time conference champion on the 880-yard dash, and also ran a leg on their 2-mile relay, which set the national record at that time. And Howard Payne Track back at the time, that was they had a big-time program. They went to all of the big meets across the country, and they won the Drake relays, they won the Kansas relays, and they won the Texas relays. So that's pretty good for a little small private school in Brownwood, Texas. He continued to play basketball after college and played in several semi-pro leagues, and one time received a call from a man named Abe Saperstein. If you're not familiar with that name, well, he owned the Harlem Globetrotters. Well, he offered my dad a contract not to play for the Globetrotters, but to play for a team called the Boston Whirlwinds. That was one of the traveling teams that competed against the Globetrotters. So anyway, he actually didn't do that because he didn't want to travel all over the country. But he went into coaching at Jacksboro and Holiday. Is where he coached. And back in the 60s, Jacksboro became a powerhouse in the 60s. They won the state championship. Also, they were voted the team of the decade in the 60s for Class 2A. He became the head football coach at Jacksboro. And in 7 years, his record was 65-12. They went to 3 regional finals and were a state semifinalist. And Mr. Wilcox, just a little trivia, you probably know this, but that last football game ever played on the campus of Midwestern State University was Jacksboro and Iowa Park. That was actually my dad's last football game, and Iowa Park actually went on to win the state championship that year. He was also a phenomenal basketball coach. He was a basketball coach for 11 seasons. His overall record in basketball was 232 wins and 52 losses. They won 8 district championships, went to 3 regional tournaments, and were also a state finalist in basketball, which just so happened to be the same year that they won state in football. After his coaching career, he went into administration. When he retired, he was superintendent at Holiday. In 1991, he was a finalist for the National Superintendent of the Year Award. Also, he received recognition from the Texas Association of Basketball Coaches for promoting basketball throughout the state of Texas. And perhaps, probably his favorite part of being the superintendent was he served 10 years on the UIL Legislative Council. And to close this up, I'm going to read a quote from Dr. Charles Brydup, who is the Executive Director of the University Interscholastic League. From his time as an outstanding high school and college athlete through his time as a great coach and school administrator, Dan has been a most humble and gracious man. As a school superintendent, Dan Owen made a tremendous impact on the state of Texas while serving as a member of the University Interscholastic League Legislative Council. Along with his colleagues, the council helps to develop the best high school academic, music, and athletic competition in the country. The legacy of Dan Owen lives on through his children and grandchildren and through the thousands of students he influenced. His name still resonates across the state. I knew him as a servant leader and loved him as a friend. He was and is a Texas treasure. Once again, thank you, Tobin, and I appreciate this award, as does my family. Thank you.
And now, it's time for our next Hall of Fame inductee. Take a look at the screen. The Thrill, Eddie Hill, the forefather of racing, or maybe Fast Eddie. You pick the nickname. He's a world-famous racer and a local businessman. Eddie Hill features a storied career both on land and on the water. A top fuel driver for over a decade, he's also raced motorcycles and drag boats. Eddie was king of the road and king of the water in his heyday. He's lived to tell the tale of vicious crashes, with broken bones serving as just a blip on the radar as he always jumped back behind the wheel. From his first win in 1949 to his most recent wins in 2021, Eddie owns an incredible streak of racing victories in 9 different decades. Today, Eddie Hill and his wife, Ursi, own Eddie Hill's Fun Cycles in downtown Wichita Falls. He's already in 2 drag racing Hall of Fames, the Texas Motorsports Hall of Fame and the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. And today, Eddie Hill becomes a member of the Nexstar Sports Hall of Fame. Please welcome to the stage, Ursi Hill and Eddie Hill. I don't know about y'all, but if I'm ever driving around town and I see these two, I feel like I've just seen a true celebrity right here in Wichita Falls. Congratulations, Eddie and Ursi. The podium is yours.
Wow, that's pretty.
There's that. There's this.
Okay, Tobin told me, since we're running a little late, that he wanted me to hold my little talk to an hour or maybe a little less, but I made a couple of notes because there's a couple of things that I don't want to forget. And then, by the time I get through this, we'll be pretty close to the end here. Tobin, I appreciate being inoculated into this Hall of Fame. Not inoculated? Incalculated?
No.
Electrocuted? No. Incarcerated, I got it. It's written down here. Good evening, I'm Eddie Hill, and this is the brains of the outfit and the looks, Ursi Hill. And we're Christians, and we're conservatives, and we're Texans, and we're racers, and we're business owners, and in that order. We're, thank you. We thank Tobin and KFDX and Nexstar for including us in this deal. It's an honor, and we appreciate it. We also really want to thank all our family and friends and customers that are here helping us celebrate. My daughter Sabrina is here, and Trey and Nikki Serrala, they're here, and I appreciate y'all being here. And want to have a huge thank you to all of Texoma who appreciated and supported our Eddie Hill's Fun Cycles since 1966. It's really hard to put into words how much we really do appreciate the support here. The community's shown us for our business and our racing both. For the last 55 years, that sounds weird to say that, but it's true. I was born on March 6, 1936, on the 100th anniversary of the Battle of the Alamo, really, exactly. And when I was 13 years old, in 1949, I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and He has just absolutely blessed my socks off ever since. He has been so good to us, and I won my first race later that year in 1949 over at Shreveport, Louisiana on a Cushman motor scooter I'd hopped up. And it's hard to believe, but we've won trophies in every decade since. That's actually 9 decades. It doesn't seem possible, but it was the last of the 40s, now we're in the first of the 2020s, and that's the way the math works. But good Lord's blessed us with so many wins and so many blessings and keeping me healthy. The Bible says, delight yourself in the Lord and He'll grant you the desires of your heart. And in my case, that's race wins in 9 decades and 55 years of successful business. Thank you, Lord. I started my Eddie Hill's Fun Cycles business in '66 when I was 30 years old as a one-man operation. And I opened the store myself and ordered motorcycles myself and put them together and sold them and serviced them and kept the books and serviced the restrooms, swept the floor and all. Did the whole thing. And now, the last time we wrote checks, I think you said we've got 24 wonderful employees now. So the Lord's really blessed our business, and y'all have with your trust in your business, and we really do appreciate that. We what's next? My dad, who was a veterinarian, and my daughter, Sabrina, and I make 3 generations of Texas Aggies, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, Gig'em Aggies. And we're so proud of Texas and our area here that we named our racing team the Texan Racing Team, and my corporate logo was a stylized Texas flag with a Ranger star on it. And so we're we're really proud of being Texans. And so when we were blessed with race wins and national records and championships and so forth all across this great country, well, we were doing that as a Texan racing team. And sometimes we even fly a Texas flag on the back of our tow rig to make sure everybody knows that we're Texans. We raced in California and Florida and Washington State and New Jersey, the Four Corners, and almost every state in between. And all that traveling and all the time we spent out on the road racing boats and motorcycles and cars, we never found any place else that we liked anywhere near as well as Wichita Falls, let alone anywhere we'd like to live. And we love the people of Texas here, their attitude, the way folks respect each other and help one another and look out for each other. We've got clean air here, and that's not true everywhere. And we have open space and no crowding. There's some places we race where it's so crowded I wouldn't want to stay there a week, let alone live there. And we love our low crime rate here and our music and our sense of family and our churches that we have here. And a lot of the children around here, they grow up knowing how things work and how to work and how to fix things. And they know where food comes from, and that's not true everywhere. I could go on, but the point is we're really proud of y'all, and we're proud to represent Texas and Wichita Falls in our Texoma community. We're really grateful for the way everybody's treated us here. Wichita Falls is the home of the only team that's ever been the overall fastest and quickest in drag racing on land and water. And we're pleased to have the boat and dragster on free and permanent display in our showroom there, just about a quarter mile from here at our business. And you're welcome to come by and pick up free pictures of the dragster that are right there with the car for you to pick up if you're interested in that. And we need to point out that none of the successes that we've had in racing or in business have been ours alone. We always had a tremendous amount of help with the racing team and the business to everybody making us look good. We get all the credit, but that's not where it belongs. And the name of the award ought to be Eddie and Ursi, not Eddie. But we want to thank every person that's helped us reach our goals and pursue our dreams. We've just been so very blessed. We especially thank the Lord for pulling us through some of the awfulest crashes I guess you ever saw, some of which could have gone the other way, except for, I think, divine intervention. If you can stop and think for just a minute, try to imagine what it feels like to crash a boat at over 200 miles an hour. And think about what it'd be like to crash a race car at over 320 miles an hour. When you're upside down and on fire and still going 300 mile an hour, it pays to have a friend at the factory, I can tell you that for sure. I've never put so much as even a tiny scratch on any of my street vehicles or on the street. But if you count all the crashes that the good Lord has pulled me through with flat tracking motorcycles and racing over 200 miles an hour in boats and over 300 mile an hour in cars, I may be the most crashed person still alive. And that's why when you see my guardian angel is the one with the bruised knuckles and the band-aids and the singed feathers, I ask the good Lord all the time, why me, Lord? Why am I so blessed? There's got to be some deserving people out there. I never get an answer to that one, but we do thank Him every day. And in closing, I've got 2 words. Thanks, boss. God bless y'all.
Once again, for Eddie Hill, please. I'd like to focus your attention once again to the screen as we recognize our next Hall of Fame inductee. A graduate of Wichita Falls High School in 1972, Ronnie Littleton was one of the best players to come through the Coyote football program. When all was said and done, he went down as one of the greatest athletes in Texas high school football history. He was just a sophomore on the 1969 Coyotes state championship team, one of 5 black athletes on the Old High roster. This marked the first time blacks and whites played together in Wichita Falls. By his senior year, Littleton was the star of the show, leading the Coyotes back to the state title game in 1971, playing on both sides of the ball, nearly every down. Highly recruited out of high school, Littleton had offers from some of the biggest college programs in the nation, ultimately choosing TCU. Injured in just his second collegiate game, multiple knee surgeries prevented him from ever being the dominant athlete he once was. Littleton took the field in 44 games as a Horned Frog, but injuries likely robbed him of a professional career playing the game he loved. Today, Ronnie Littleton becomes a member of the Nexstar Sports Hall of Fame. Accepting the award on behalf of Ronnie Littleton is his daughter, Camille Littleton Williams. You're welcome. Thank you. It's yours.
Good evening to all of you. I'd like to say thank you to Nexstar, KFDX, Tobin, the sponsors for this award honoring my father. Also, congratulations to all of the nominees and honorees and inductees tonight as well. I'm honored tonight to be here, and I'm not alone. God has a sense of humor. If you don't know, my husband's name is also Ronnie. He also played football here in Wichita Falls and did make it to the pros, unlike my father. So God does have a sense of humor. Also with me, I have both of my daughters. My oldest daughter is Ashley, and the youngest is Ayana. And I also have my brother and my lovely sister-in-law and both nephews. A lot of you in the room may know that technically I am an only child, but my dad married a lovely woman, and my brother and I were raised as family. We're not blood, but we're bonded by love, and that's all that matters to me. They're my family, so I'm happy to have them here with us tonight to celebrate. How many people in the room knew Dad? Just by show of hands. Anybody in the room that actually knew Dad or was around? Okay, I can see one, maybe. Gosh, where do I start? Dad was a character, to say the least. And I want to talk tonight about the person that I knew. You saw all the, pictures and the accolades of all of his talent, but ironically, I didn't know that about my dad until I got to high school. You know him as a legend, I know him as Dad. So he taught life lessons, just, everyday nuggets that he would drop. Some of those were half pint, that was my nickname. My brother's nickname was Boss Man. You can't change people, places, or things, or situations. You can only change your response to them or your reaction to them. He also said, if your business gets back to me, you have no business. He was, he was big on, keeping your business to yourself. He also said, if you and the young lady looking back at you in the mirror don't see eye to eye, it's up to you to fix it. And then he had 3 non-negotiables in life: his family, his money, and his dog. He had a full-blood child named Columbo, and I think he treated him better than he did me and my brother. So I didn't know Dad as, one of the top recruits in high school during the early 70s. I mentioned, that I didn't find out any of that until high school. Bert Locke was my principal at Old High, which is where I went, which was Dad's alma mater. And one day walked up and said, "Hey, are you Ronnie Littleton's daughter?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Your dad was a great football player." And I was like, "What?" Took me over to the trophy case and showed me all the trophies. And I went back and I asked Dad, and I was like, "Dad, is this really true?" And he was like, "Half pint, yeah, but that was so many years ago. It doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter." So I've never even seen Dad play a down of football. I've never seen a recording of it. I've never seen anything but just still photographs. So for those of you who have those memories, if you could share those with me, that would be great. I love hearing those stories of him, being that fanatical or that charismatic player on the field. Dad was, loving, funny, hardworking family man, my friend and my confidant, my mechanic at times. He was very handy with his hands, as you can see, but football wasn't the only thing he was good at. And he was all the time my banker. But he was a tough lender because he always told me, if he lent money to me, I couldn't piece it back to him. So if it was $100 that he lent, I couldn't give him $20 here or there. I had to wait until I had it all and then give it back to him. So, again, I stated he was very charismatic, on and off the field. He had a smile, oh my God, that could light any room, and a soul that could feel it just as well. When interviewed by I don't remember if it was Channel 3 or if it was 6, but one of the local news stations came when Dad transitioned in December of 2015. And one of the things they asked was, what would I remember most? And my statement was something along the lines of the fact that he was just a wonderful person, and the best thing that he ever gave me was himself. He was not selfish. He was very giving. I wanted for nothing. My brother, my children, his children wanted for nothing as we grew. But it's not those things that I think about or that I miss when I think about Dad. I think about the times that we shared, and those are what I hold most dear. Those are the things that allow me to smile through the tears when I think about, him on hard days. The one thing that I would want to leave with you all tonight is that of all of the amazing people, young and seasoned, who have been honored, in everything that you achieved or will achieve, never lose sight of who you are. Your profession or your hobbies are what you do, but they're not who you are. Really maintain those relationships, build those relationships, treasure those, because in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, they're gone, and you can't recapture, you can't get them back. Thank you again for this honor. It's my privilege and my pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you.
Please, once again, take your eyes to the screen for our next Hall of Fame inductee. Paul Brotherton was involved in Wichita Falls sports history in many different ways. First, he was a minor league baseball player, suiting up for the Wichita Falls Spudders in the 1940s. A great hitter, Brotherton made his name at the plate. He was top 10 in the league in batting average in 1947 and led the league in hits in 1948. He led the Spudders to the Big State League championship game that year. But low wages in minor league ball weren't enough to sustain a living. So it was off to Midwestern State, where he coached the men's basketball team from 1949 to 1952, his teams winning over 60% of their games. He then opened Brotherton and White Sporting Goods, which he owned and operated until 1963. And then it was back to the courts to coach, this time the tennis courts, first at Barwise and then at Ryder High School, the Raiders winning 3 state titles under his watch. Brotherton then shifted to coaching golf at Ryder from 1974 to 1976 before finishing his coaching career back on the tennis courts at McNeil Junior High. Paul Brotherton is in the Texas Tennis Coaches Hall of Fame, and today he becomes a member of the Nexstar Sports Hall of Fame. Accepting on behalf of Paul Brotherton, his son, Bob Brotherton. You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Tobin. On behalf of my family, I want to thank you and Nexstar and all involved with the selection process and with the banquet process for this great honor. You know, sports surrounded my father's life. He was from Charleston, Arkansas, and played, I'm sure, every sport there, as did most young men at that time in small school USA. He wound up being a 2-sport letterman at LSU, played on the first conference championship basketball team at LSU, and then continued after college with baseball, as Tobin has mentioned. He signed a minor league contract with the Cleveland Indians after he graduated from LSU with the help of his brother, who was a minor league scout for Cleveland. He played for Cleveland before the war and after the war. In about 1942, I couldn't find this to bring it with me, but I've got a minor league contract that he did not sign. And the story he always told us was he wasn't going to play for that small amount of money. He was in a salary dispute over $25 a month with the Cleveland Indians. And interestingly enough, in 1942, the salary cap for that minor league team was $2,600 a month. So that was the story he told his family, and when I was going through some other of his things, I also found his induction papers when he joined the Navy that spring. So I don't think it was the minor league contract that was a problem. I think it was Uncle Sam that had other ideas for him. So he's in the Navy for 4 or 5 years, and he gets out in the late 40s and went back to Cleveland, back to the minor league system, and had missed 4 years of baseball, and so Cleveland ultimately sold him to the Spudders here in Wichita Falls. So baseball brought him to Texoma, but I think his sports legacy in Texoma, as you saw on the screen, was probably his tennis coaching. But now with the receipt of this award, I think this award is going to be my father's sports legacy here in Texoma, and we greatly appreciate that. He would be so happy to be here tonight to be inducted, particularly with this group of honorees. I want to single out 2 of the honorees because there's a special relationship. That's Bobby Evans and Joe Golding. Bobby played basketball for my dad at Midwestern and then was his business partner in Brotherton and White until my dad left to begin coaching. The opportunity to coach was given to him by Joe Golding, and so he would be tickled to death to be here with Bobby and Coach Joe and to be an award winner here tonight. So again, on behalf of my family, we want to thank you so much for this honor. Thank you.
And once again, I take your eyes to the screen as we recognize our next Hall of Fame inductee. Dr. Gerald Stockton was the head coach of the men's basketball team at Midwestern State from 1970 until 1994, and no one at MSU accomplished more than him. In his 2.5 decades leading the Indians, Stockton racked up nearly 500 wins. Under his leadership, the team won 70 straight games at the Coliseum across 4 seasons, a record that may never be broken. The iconic coach led his teams to the NAIA postseason tournament 8 times, finishing as national runner-up in 1975. Stockton earned Coach of the Year in his final season, 1994, and a year later was inducted into the NAIA Hall of Fame. Stockton attended Oklahoma State University, at the time it was Oklahoma A&M, where he played 3 seasons for the Cowboys under legendary coach Hank Iba, making the Final Four in 1951. The court at D.L. Ligon Coliseum is emblazoned with his name, and tonight Gerald Stockton becomes a member of the Nexstar Sports Hall of Fame. Accepting on behalf of Gerald Stockton, his son, Greg Stockton.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to be pretty quick. I know, never give me a mic, and my dad would have said that too. But like so many of you, there's so many common threads that I'm hearing from the families. And by the way, Ronnie Littleton was a pretty darn good basketball player too. You know, Dad's 493 wins at Midwestern. He had 15, 20 win seasons, 2 30-win seasons, 3 to the Final Four. He had 6 All-Americans. He was Coach of the Year and then was also inducted into the Hall of Fame as an athletic director and a coach. They asked him when they named the court after him, Jeff Ray and I were talking about this. Sorry, you can tell I'm a little emotional. Did he want to be Dr. Gerald Stockton or Coach Gerald Stockton? Without hesitation, he said Coach. That's what he loved. He loved to teach. He was, I'm going to have to say sorry, Wayne. I told him to be good, but he did tell me one time, he said, he had about a year before he died, he said, you know, son, it didn't matter if I was playing ping pong, tennis, golf, bowling. I didn't care if I was playing you, your sister, your mother, or an All-American. I wanted to kick your ass. That's some of the common denominator that when I hear that people want, that they have that drive. And Daddy had that to win. But I think I want to thank Nexstar and KFDX now, everybody, because this would mean a lot to Dad, and it means a lot to my sisters and my nephews and my kids that are here. We had a very supportive family. Mom was very supportive of Dad, and golly, here it goes. Hall of Fame coach. I said I wouldn't do it, but he was Hall of Fame dad and a Hall of Fame family man. Thank y'all.
Please once again direct your attention to the monitors. Joe Bob Tyler is a fixture when it comes to Texoma football coaches. After graduating from Burke Burnett, Tyler continued his playing career at Northeast Louisiana Junior College, which is now the University of Louisiana Monroe. His time interrupted when he left to join the Army during World War II. Joe Bob Tyler was taken as a prisoner of war in the Battle of the Bulge and held captive by the Germans for 4 months. Fortunately, he was liberated in 1945 and returned home. That's when Tyler picked up where he left off on the field, becoming Louisiana Monroe's first ever All-American in football. When his playing career ended, his coaching career began, Tyler taking over the Bulldogs program in 1949. After 6 seasons, he joined the staff at Wichita Falls High School, working under Joe Golding. In 1961, Tyler was named the first head coach of the Rider Raiders football program. He later returned to Old High to take over as head coach from 1980 to 1989, later serving as an assistant at Midwestern State in the early 90s. Joe Bob Tyler is in the Oil Bowl Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame at his alma mater, and the Texas High School Coaches Association Hall of Honor. And now he becomes a member of the Nexstar Sports Hall of Fame. Accepting on behalf of Joe Bob Tyler, his son, Toby Tyler.
Thank you, Tobin.
You're welcome. The podium is yours.
Well, you turn those lights down a little? You know, listen, folks, I didn't know that for sure that I was going to do this. I mean, my brother and my sister are both better athletes than I was, so I guess I got the short straw. But I'm grateful to be here with all you folks. You know, there's some common denominators I've noticed during the conversation this evening. One is that I used to pick cotton for Dan Owen's daddy, Dawson. And there's no question in my mind why Dan turned out as good as he did, because his dad worked me like a sled dog, and I'm sure he did the same thing to his own. I am grateful, more than you know, to get to accept this award in honor of my father and in his place. He's a great man, had a great wife, Pat, who brought us up, and when he was busy, and that was most of the time, she filled in the blanks. She's probably a Hall of Fame teacher, just like my sister was. And you know, as I think about it, there might have been a lot more trouble with us growing up if we hadn't had two really good parents. So I'm grateful for that. You know, you saw the video. My dad was he was the first All-American at that time. It was Northeast Louisiana College. He was a soldier. He was a member of the greatest generation, obviously. And, you know, those folks had a better handle, I think, on some concepts that are pretty important, I know, to a lot of people here. And that's another reason I'm grateful to be here in, you know, the Wichita Falls area, because I graduated from Ryder High School. I played for my dad. As a matter of fact, I remember after one issue, and this is before I got to the varsity, I played for Coach Leo Britton, who's a Hall of Famer himself, the late Leo Britton. I was walking by the coach's office, and I heard my dad call Coach Britton in. And he said, "Hey, Coach, I heard somebody got knocked out in bull in the ring down there in practice today." This was the B team. Coach Britton was the head B team coach. Coach Britton said, "Oh, yeah, Coach." He said, "You know, Toby came at me kind of hard, and I did. That's the only 2 times I've been knocked out in my life." He said, "Yeah, it was Toby." And my dad said, "Oh, he'll be all right." So, you know, it was, he was tougher than a $2 steak, but he was also, you know, somebody that if he told you a chicken picked cotton, you better get that hen a toe sack and knee pads. The other thing, I guess, that I remember about him, and I'll, you know, kind of elevate it a little bit here. I was an English major in college. He was as constant as the North Star in commitment, with honor, with strength of character. These were things that were not negotiable to him. As a matter of fact, I think he also worked me like a sled dog. The only thing that I remember about my weekends as a little boy was getting to go to see Paul Brotherton at Brotherton and White, because he always bought me a Dr. Pepper. And those weren't allowed at my house. So, you know, we drank a lot of water, we stayed hydrated, and let me tell you what, when it was hot, we were getting ready. I mean, we had 2-a-days at home when I was 6 years old. Anyway, Tobin McDuff, I want to thank you for the, the praise that you provided for my great dad when you phoned me to tell me about this. I want you all to know, too, that I have a little bit of a special interest in this, not just being the son, but I'm a retired 5A high school principal. So, I started out in Dallas ISD, so I know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I want every one of you to know out there, I love you people. I was a 1A high school principal a couple of times and retired from a 5A high school. So I covered the whole spectrum. And there's no place better, and I've been all over Texas, and I spent a little bit of time in the United States Marine Corps. There's no place better than this area. You are all living proof, if I may use one of the lines from Mike Lindell, the I-Pillow guy. With God, all things are possible. God bless you. God bless Texas. God bless the United States of America. Salute the flag.
Don't forget your trophy and go get your picture taken. You're welcome. You're welcome. Please take your attention again to the screen for our next Hall of Fame inductee. Joe Golding spent 15 years as the head football coach and athletic director at Wichita Falls High School from 1947 to 1961. Under his leadership, the Coyotes boasted an impressive 153 wins, the most by any coach in WFISD history. His team lost just 25 times and recorded 2 ties, winning 85% of his games. It's the best mark in Coyotes program history. The legendary head coach led his teams to 6 state title games, winning 4 state championships across 3 different decades. First in 1949, the Coyotes repeated as champs in 1950, won again in 1958, and a 4th time in 1961. After that season, Golding took over as the WFISD athletic director, a position he held until 1979. The field at Memorial Stadium is named after Joe Golding, and tonight he becomes a member of the Nexstar Sports Hall of Fame. Accepting on behalf of Joe Golding, his son, Joe Golding. You're welcome, Coach.
Okay, we'll get an old story over here. Nexstar, we thank you, Texoma's Sports Wars. We appreciate you, Tobin, for all y'all do. Okay, Tobin called me up. He says, Joe, you're going to have this award. Don't know much about it. You need to come. It's going to be for your dad. I said, well, what am I supposed to say? He said, well, you got about 3 minutes, and you're supposed to say something funny. I said, what do you mean funny? He said, well, you're supposed to say something nice, something funny about your dad. I said, you hell didn't know my dad. There wasn't anything funny about this man. There's no funny in my life when I was growing up. This man grew up in Eufaula, Oklahoma, about 1,500 people. 1,000 of them were Indian. My grandfather ran a pool hall and sold moonshine whiskey till the feds came and got him and he took off running. Took a year for my grandmother to get a divorce so that she could get the pool hall. Then she's got this pool hall, now she don't know what to do with it. Well, we're in the middle of the Depression. So she says, I'll turn it into a co-op grocery store. Well, everybody in that town loved my grandmother. She later became the city clerk, ran for election, had one guy run against her, got 3 votes. Took an ad out in the paper next week, said, I guess I'm leaving town. So he's out. She turns those pool tables into a co-op grocery store, carries all the books. And my dad, that's how he grew up. And when he's 18 years old, he set off on foot from Eufaula, Oklahoma to Commerce to East Texas University. Grandmother had fixed him 2 sandwiches, put them in a paper sack, and he had everything he owned on him. And he took off. And 4 years later, he graduated from East Texas, never made a B in his life. Not only did he graduate with a PE degree, but he had his master's in English. And a lot of people think my dad's a great football coach, and that's all they think of. People weren't aware that he was really a better basketball player than he was everything else. And that's where Paul Brotherton's, that's where they got to be really good buddies. But my dad was a different dude. Football was his life. Toby, we lived the same life together. And when the time came for it to be over, he didn't have anything. And somewhere, I don't know where this guy came up with this idea, but he'd gone to a baseball game down at the Astrodome during coaching school. And he envisioned AstroTurf for a high school football stadium. Never been done before. So instead of football championships, he wanted to be the first high school to ever have AstroTurf. Now I'm getting to the funny part. So I don't know how the man does it. He convinces the school board and the people of Wichita Falls, and next thing you know, we've got a stadium, brand new stadium, and it's going to have AstroTurf, the only stadium in the United States of America. And what's going to really top this thing off is they're going to put this big statue. We had a Greek here in town that paid for the whole thing. And they had all this big square piece of marble up there. It had the statue on it, but it's covered, so nobody could see it. So everybody wanted to come to see this high school football stadium with AstroTurf. People from Dallas, Fort Worth, Oklahoma City, all these cameras, every TV station, film, everybody's rolling. We're going to have the big moment. We pull the rope. That dude's naked as a jaybird. Now, my dad was a deacon at First Baptist Church. And he'd already told everybody he was the one responsible for what just going to happen. Is that funny?
That's funny.
Okay. Hey, y'all been great tonight. Thank you for honoring all the people that have been here. We appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all, Chris. Job well done. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. Don't forget your trophy.
That's not mine.
And to this day, when we go out to Memorial Stadium and we tell a coach, hey, we're going to do a live shot out there, we want to meet you, and where do you want to meet? Let's meet underneath the naked guy. That's what we always say. So yeah, the naked guy, the naked runner still exists out there and always will. Okay, once again, focus your attention as we induct our final Hall of Fame inductee tonight. Bobby Evans came to Wichita Falls in 1949, and little did he know, he'd become a major part of the sports community for the next 65 years. Evans played 4 years at Hardin College, scoring over 700 points, twice earning all-conference honors as the team's guard. D.L. Ligon once saying Evans was the best ball handler he'd ever seen. While in college, Evans officiated high school basketball games. After graduation, he played a major role in the growth of the Oil Bowl Classic and as a fundraiser for Midwestern State. Evans is best known as the co-owner of Brotherton and White Sporting Goods from 1956 to 1977 and of Bobby Evans Sporting Goods from 1977 to 2014. A legend on the court and in the community, Bobby Evans is welcomed into the Nexstar Sports Hall of Fame. Accepting on behalf of Bobby Evans, his son, Steve Harris. Good to see you.
Wow, what a person to follow, little Joe. Never a dull moment around you. Hey, this is a great ticket tonight. First of all, my family would like to thank Nexstar, KFDX, everybody, Tobin. Appreciate it. You told me last night when we were texting back and forth, I was kind of rolling in my head what I was going to talk about. But if you look down this list of people, there's so many things that we could say about each one of them. In 3 to 5 minutes, it's hard to get that all in. I told Tobin last night it'd take me about an hour or two once I got to telling stories, and there's a bunch of them. One of them involves Bob. 1949, let's start there. 1949, Batesville, Arkansas Pioneers, the original Mighty Midgets. They won about every award in the state of Arkansas that a team could win. And it wasn't just in basketball. They were good in all sports. When Bobby was in high school playing sports, he also wanted to play tennis. He went to his coach and he said, "Coach, I think I want to go down Little Rock and play in the state tennis tournament." And the coach looked at him and said, they called him Little Bobby. He was 5'8". He said, "Little Bobby, you don't want to go down there. Those people are very affluent. They've had proper training. It's pretty fancy down there at that deal, and I don't want you to go down there and be disappointed." He went home and he asked his mom and dad. They said, "No, you don't have any business going to Little Rock, playing in a tennis tournament." Well, he skipped out of school in his blue jeans and his Chuck Taylor tennis shoes and his wooden tennis racket. He thumbed a ride to Little Rock. He went down there and won the stinking tennis tournament wearing his blue jeans and Chuck Taylor tennis shoes and that old wooden tennis racket. He won the state tournament. He gets back, thumbs a ride back, and goes to his coach proud with the trophy, says, "Look what I did." He was just in shock. Of course, his parents, they were in shock too, and mad. But he was that hard-headed. We're all hard-headed in our family. And I say our family, I'm a Harris. Rick and Christy sitting over there, Evans. Later on in life, he ran into my mother through a friend of his, Gene Gibson. I'll talk about that in a minute. But once he got out of high school, he had a letter from Wichita Falls, Texas, in the mail, and had Hardin College on it. And he thought, Wichita Falls, Texas, where the heck's that? And he threw it in the trash. Well, later on that day, his mom walks through, picks up the envelope, and opens it up, and it was a scholarship offer here in Wichita Falls from Paul Brotherton. So she saved up enough money, got him a bus ticket, and sent him to Wichita Falls, and he's been here. He was here ever since, till he passed. But over the years, with these people on this list, Shannon, Shane, your dad, Bobby, they played Taft basketball. They went 2 years, never lost a basketball game. There's so many people I know in here that share stories that we all grew up together. I was talking, Tobin and I mentioned last night that it's amazing this list came up the way it did. And Marty, I know you were a part of it, and thank you. You've been a big part of my life too, and our life. But you look down this list, Joe Golden, Gerald Stockton, Joe Bob, Coach Tyler, Dan Owen, Eddie Hill, Paul Brotherton, and Ronnie Lilton. My God, every Little League season I played football, I wanted number 22. I guarantee you, Ronnie Lilton made an impact on my life. In fact, you mentioned his dog earlier, and I'm kind of getting off, as Shannon said, off script a little bit here. Start my time here in a minute. But Ronnie and my brother Ricky, they were buddies in high school. And I was out, I don't know what I was doing. I was probably in trouble for doing something wrong and that push mowing the yard or something. But I turned around and Ronnie pulls up in the driveway, and we had a great old big St. Bernard dog. And that dog ran up to his car. Ricky, I can't see you right now, but you remember this. I know you do. Kelsey, our St. Bernard dog, ran up to that car, and those dogs are big, and he bowed up, and Ronnie was sitting there. Back then he had a big old afro, and that was part of the year. Part of the year he was shaved head, and the other part was afro. But anyway, he's sitting in his car, and he's looking at that dog. That dog's just going crazy. Well, I saw the window cracked about like that. He was sitting in there eating chicken, and he started throwing chicken bones at that window. And so those are some memories I have of your dad. But anyway, Bobby, he ends up here in Wichita, Hardin, Midwestern. Everything I've ever read about him in the scrapbooks. Flying feet and fast hands of little Bobby Evans from Batesville, Arkansas. That's all you hear. 5'8", playing with giants. They played University of Houston. They beat University of Houston. A week after, University of Houston just beat the number 2 team in the nation. In the nation. That's how good those guys were. And they're going on with 43 seconds left in the game. And they had a kid, I read in an article, I think his name was Keller or something, but he was 6'8" and considered a giant back then. And he dunked for 21 points during that game. Dunked. Back in those days. 21 points in one game. They throw the ball to Bobby, and they put 3 guys on him. And they couldn't stop him. They couldn't get the ball from him, couldn't slow him down. He goes down there in front of the goal and scores on this 6'8" guy. Puts him tied up. Next thing you know, he gets fouled. Back then, they called it the charity line. He goes to the charity line, shoots a free throw. They win 54-53 over the University of Houston. They beat Oklahoma Baptist College. They beat ACC to go to the national tournament. I mean, those guys could go. And it was 5'8", little Bobby Evans. That's all they called him, little Bobby Evans, flying feet and fast hands from Batesville, Arkansas. But he made a name for himself here as a basketball player, as a friend. I know there's people in this crowd that he's worked with through the coaching industry. Coach Hicks talked to you a while ago. You're one of his favorite people, one of my favorite people. Just everybody in here. Coach Ball, there's a long history. I could go on and on and on, and y'all know that. Y'all could tell me some stories, I'm sure. But he did such a tremendous job for himself, for the community, for the school. And being from Batesville, Arkansas, Paul Brotherton used to like to recruit some kids back that direction. And Bobby told me a story one time that they found a kid out in Missouri, a guy named Don Shearmeyer, who, by the way, was the first superintendent to hire me as a principal at Archer City before I retired. But he wanted Bobby to go with him to recruit this kid because he knew Bobby could get along with him real well and speak the language, so to speak. Well, Bobby's telling me that Paul, his wife, and this little baby that was sitting in a bassinet in the back seat traveled with him. I think that was you, Bob. Yeah. All the way out there to recruit this kid. And that was one of his favorite stories he used to like to tell. But he loved Paul Brotherton, he loved Bob, he loved everybody. And he was so good to coaches. Coaches were so good to him back in, I guess it was the early 80s maybe, late 70s. I go to Fort Worth for an induction. Never coached a down in his life, officially. He coached the crap out of me every time I got home from practice. But I go down to Fort Worth for a little ceremony. He gets inducted into the Texas High School Coaches Association Hall of Fame and never coached a down in his life. That's how much respect people in the coaching industry had for Bobby. And he was genuine with these people. The only friends I ever knew Bobby ever had, aside a handful, were his coaches. He truly loved the coaches. He loved the coaching world. He loved the coaching industry. He loved athletics. He loved kids. He loved everything about it, and he loved Wichita Falls. He loved this place. He did like going back to Arkansas to visit from time to time. In fact, he got inducted into the Arkansas High School Athletic Hall of Fame. He was inducted into Midwestern's Hall of Fame. He was inducted into the Oil Bowl Hall of Fame. over there. I don't remember which years all those were, but those are things that happened. And you know what? He didn't really, I mean, he cared, he enjoyed it. It was an honor for him. But he didn't wear that on his chest. He didn't wear that on a bracelet on his hand. And if you were talking to him, he never mentioned that. You'd have to read about that or hear it from somebody else. You know who that was you're talking to? I was playing football at Texas Tech, and I came home one weekend. Iowa Park's playing Vernon. I go to Vernon, I think, I'm going to go watch this ball game. I go to the ball game, and I think, well, I'm going to go in the gate right here where the ambulance goes through, kind of sneak in a little bit. They'll let me in. And I walked up, and there were two Vernon coaches standing there. And they said, what do you need? One of them said, what do you need? I said, I was just going to slip in here and watch the ball game. And they said, no. The other one said, you know who that is? He said, no, who's that? He said, it's Bobby Evans' boy. And I looked at him, I said, no, my name's Steve Harris. I believe I'll go buy a ticket. And later on, that coach was in the store, and he told Bobby that story, and Bobby told him, he said, oh, he's a hardhead, trust me. Now, let me tell you something let me switch over to the ladder deal over here. I'm a stepson. He's my stepdad. That stepladder deal, I get it. Okay, I get it. I'm a little boy. He just married my mama. They were down at Brotherton White. There used to be a silver pole in the middle of the store. You'd walk in and kind of go towards the counter, and there was a silver pole out there kind of in the middle. Ricky and Christy, y'all remember that? Well, I was a little boy, and on Saturdays, Bobby would take me down to the store with him, and I thought I'd died going to heaven, hanging out in the sporting goods store all day long, and I'd get to watch coaches play dominoes in the back room, till that got stopped. But anyway, I'd swing around that silver pole and just listen to the stories, and boy, on Saturdays, all the coaches would come in, and boy, Bobby and the coaches, they had stories, and they'd do this and do that, and I was out there one day, I guess I was 7 maybe, and he'd just married my mom. And he looked, it might have been Coach Largen or Coach Froman or one of them, and Coach Krause and somebody. And he said, golly. He said, they beat them like a stepchild. I was scared to death for the next 6 weeks. I just knew I was going to go home and get my tail beat, which I did several times, but not because of that. But anyway, that's the first time I heard they got beat like a stepchild. So, hey, I get the latter joke. I'm a stepchild. But anyway, this has been a great honor. When Bobby finished college, he got in the sporting good business. He used to call on schools. He'd keep his stuff in the back seat, and he'd spend the night with his coaches when he was on the road. And they'd feed him. You know, he'd eat supper with them, they'd visit and everything, and he just built up that camaraderie between that coach and the sporting goods. And over the years, a lot of coaches have worked for Bobby when they were in college, and he loved having that. Shane worked there for, Shane, 30 years? Just about, off and on. We had a great friend that's no longer with us named Ronnie Lowrance. His daddy was coaching and superintendent and all of that, and he worked there with us. Boy, we had some mean football games in the front of that store on Saturday mornings, and when Bobby would walk in, we'd freeze. Because we'd be jumping over racks, catching footballs and stuff, and here Bobby'd come in. We'd say, oh, crap. We'd spend the rest of the day counting socks and jocks in the warehouse. But anyway, he gets in the sporting good business, and we're living over here in Wichita at the time. My dad died when I was very young, and a guy down the road named Gene Gibson, Bobby called him Hoot. I think he worked for Bobby at the time. He told Bobby and Christy, Ricky, y'all have heard this story. But he told Bobby, he said, hey, there's a good-looking old widow woman down there on the corner. You need to go introduce yourself. Well, back then, there was a sidewalk that went up to the front door, and there's a big tree on either side. And my brother Jimmy and I, he's 3 years older than I am, he had his tree and I had my tree. We had baskets up in trees. Well, we were kind of protective of our mama, since it was just mama and us 4 kids. And so we'd always have water balloons in those baskets. Well, Bobby pulls up to introduce himself that day. He's driving, I think it was an old blue, it was either a Grand Am or Imperial or something he drove back then. But he pulled up in the front. He gets out and he goes to walking up that sidewalk. And Jimmy and I, we bombarded him with water balloons. I mean to tell you, we got him, and we were good. He kept walking. He knocks on the door. Mama opens the door, and there stands Bobby, sopping wet with little pieces of balloon all over him. She's just in shock. He introduced, "Hi, I'm Bobby." When he was serious, it wasn't Bobby Evans. "Hi, I'm Bobby D. Evans." And he introduced himself, and it all went from there. And I heard him say several years later, if he knew what was going to happen in the next few years, he probably should have turned around and got back in his car and drove off. Between us and Ricky and Bobby Don and Christy and my brothers and my sister, if he wasn't white-headed when he met my mama, he would have been shortly after, I guarantee you. I mean, good gosh. You talk about having to have tough skin. He taught tough lessons, and he was a good teacher. He was a teacher. As far as I'm concerned, personally, he was a great coach. He coached me through not only athletics, he coached me not to let football define me as I went through high school and college. He said one day that football train's going to stop and get you off of it, and guess what? They're going to be playing football next weekend, and you're not going to be on that train anymore. So don't let it be your life. He taught lessons like that, and there was deep lessons. He was just a great man all the way around. He was a great father. Only father really I ever had. I'm not blood, I know that, but he's the man that raised me. And I tell you, poor Ricky, he used to have to, it got to the point Ricky would have to come pick me up from school every time I got kicked out. And Bobby got tired of coming up there. But he'd say, "Rick, go get Clyde. He's in trouble again." And Rick would pull up there in his orange Camaro and just hit, and of course Rick would be honking and laughing and pick me up, take me to the store, and I'd be in the warehouse the rest of the day. But this lineup of folks and these people in this room are wonderful. This is a great ticket to be on. And the good thing about it is, Tobin, have you started my 3 to 5 minutes yet?
It's almost up. You got 30 seconds.
Okay. If my wife was here, now generally, Greg Stockton can attest to this. It's hard for me to speak under 5 minutes. And through Shriners events and stuff that I've talked, and
you got 15 seconds.
My wife will sit at the back of the room, and she's got a certain thing that when she wants me to wrap it up, you may try this. She'll go. And that means it's time for me to wrap it up. In fact, a lot of the Shriners, when I'm talking now, they've learned to do that. But anyway, what an honor to be on this ticket. Great people. Oh my gosh. Everybody in this room, thank you. Young athletes, your future is great. Be positive. Be thankful. There's a lot of people in this area that support you. One of the greatest supportive areas I've ever seen. Gosh, what a great community to be from. And on behalf of the Evans family, we thank every one of y'all. Thank you.
Go ahead and go that way. They're going to get your picture taken. Once again, I want to recognize all of our Hall of Famers that we inducted tonight. They are on your screen. Dan Owen, Eddie Hill, Ronnie Littleton, Paul Brotherton, Gerald Stockton, Joe Bob Tyler, Joe Golding, Bobby Evans. That is the class of 2021. Give them all a round of applause once again, Texoma. As we close tonight, I do want to say that the centerpieces that are on your table, those were designed by Sincerely Yours in Iowa Park. If you'd like to take one of those home, please do so tonight. I'd like to thank everyone here tonight, whether you were a nominee, whether you were a recipient of a Texoma Sports Award tonight. Thank you for what you do. You are the best of the best. We are so proud to cover you. We love you. Keep up the hard work, and we hope to see you again next year.
Remember starting out at the crash on the couch days. Now there's no way out of our house 'cause it's such a maze. Then the wall came crashing down, and there's nothing to stop us now. Always knew that we would find a path to the better days. Oh, we all knew never hold us for long. Together we made it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Together we made it, why don't we say it for ourselves? All the words they said to keep us down, they didn't work. No, nothing they could do would stop us climbing. Together we made it, together we made it, we made it, together we made it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Together we made it, why don't we say it for ourselves? All the words they said to keep us down, they didn't work. No, nothing they could do would stop us climbing. Together we made it, together we made it, we made it, yeah, we made it, made it, together we made it.